According to research from Microsoft, 74% report that the perception of a brand improves when it's clear the company responds to customer social media inquiries. And yet, the average response rate for brands is only 7%. Why are so many companies failing to engage with and deal with comments on social media? And more importantly, for agencies or large brands who are seeing tremendous volume, how are they supposed to keep up with and moderate all those comments? That's what we're covering in today's episode of the MarTech Show.
The past is gone. Now is the future.
This is the MarTech Show, exploring today's marketing technology solutions. Social media, artificial intelligence, augmented reality.
Now is the future.
Content, SEO, email, analytics, listening, advertising, and more. I'm your host, Mike Allton, and I'm joined by agency owner and technology futurist Robin Dimond. Each episode explores the latest developments in marketing technology and shares new solutions and innovative approaches that you need to know about to grow your business today. And now, the rest of today's episode. Welcome back to the MarTech Show, where Robin and I get to dish on what's shiny and new in the MarTech space, and then do a deep dive into a specific platform or solution that can help you and your business today. Hey, Robin, how are things going?
Absolutely amazing. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. So glad to have you here. Now, this week, Meta introduced some new Gen AI-powered features, allowing advertisers to automate the creation of text and images in ads on the company's social platforms. We're talking about Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. Now, new tools and features, they'll be added incrementally, but the aim is to have them available globally by the end of the year. But there's some stuff it can do today. The current text creation tool creates variations on ad headlines and body text. Meta's also testing the ability to create text that fits specific brand's voice and tone, while suggesting key selling points to include in the ad's message. From an image perspective, ad managers and marketers can generate variations on existing creative. They can use tools to change backgrounds around images or stretch out the image to fit multiple parameters. For instance, image expansion is now available to fit images on Reels and feed ads across both Instagram and Facebook. And in the coming months, users will be able to create images from text prompts, according to Meta. What's your take on this, Robin?
I think it's absolutely amazing. I mean, you said it earlier today, we can't keep up with all the things that are happening. How are you supposed to keep up with so many platforms, so many changes? And so Meta doing this is allowing us to kind of embrace our brand and change it up to be more personalized. We're seeing it. And I always tell everyone, if you're not cheating, you're not trying, which is using ChatGPT. But seeing AI be involved in all of these is really helping us get to know our audiences.
Totally agree. And using AI to help with editing and modifying is one thing. Using AI to completely generate ad copy and creative seems like something else entirely, but that's certainly the direction that MarTech tools are going right now. Now, in other tool news, yesterday, the first Tuesday of May was MarTech Day for those who celebrate. That's the day that Scott Brinker of ChiefMarTech.com and HubSpot releases his annual report on the state of MarTech industry and how much development there's been since the previous year. So we're going to bring Scott into the studio next week for a special podcast-only edition of the MarTech Show to break down everything that's happening with marketing technology. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast player so you don't miss out. But spoiler alert, the report reveals a massive 27% increase year over year in new marketing technology. Just mind-blowing how many tools and apps are out there and the capabilities that are being developed. With this proliferation of tools comes both good and bad. Automation brings out folks who look for opportunities to cut corners and abuse systems. Like you said, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. And one of those areas is in comments. There are so many tools today that allow bad actors to spam all kinds of comments on our brand and our social media posts. But it's not all bad. Many brands have achieved sufficient reach and audience to enjoy tremendous levels of organic commentary from fans and clients. The trouble is, high volumes of comments and questions can easily overwhelm social media managers, support staff, and agency representatives. So how do we keep up? And how can we better leverage and elevate all the positive comments that are being left? Well, that's exactly what Matthew McGrory is going to talk to us about. Matt is the CEO and the co-founder of Arwen AI Limited, a tool to help Enterprise brands revolutionize their social conversations. Arwen uses market-leading AI to put you in control of your social media paid and organic comments, automatically removing spam and toxic comments, detecting and managing negative comments, and spotting the opportunities to amplify the positive. Hey, Matthew, welcome to the show.
Hi, Mike. Hi, Robin. Lovely to be here.
So glad to have you. Let's just dive right in. Why is comment moderation really needed today? And what kinds of brands or profiles seem to have the most need?
So, in our experience, the brands or profiles are plentiful. Anyone that's kind of making a living online, or anyone that's looking to project their brand in a safe and secure way, which would include typically B2C businesses, online brands, influencers. We find specifically a lot of clients we have are in the elite sports organizations, broadcastings, and we find there are typical things that can generate obviously large comments come with accounts that have large followers. Typically, it can be any organization that's kind of got a very strong B2C public facing audience. And we also see people spending lots on ad spend and want to protect that ad spend from being hijacked by kind of a contra brand position. And we also find people that are expressing a DEI, a kind of diversity objective around what they're doing, taking a stand or a position on something that might have an oppositional stance, also kind of puts them in need of trying to really kind of control what's going on. And if you want to protect your asset that you're investing in, which is your social media, we think it's really important to think about this long and hard.
I mean, we've all been there. We've all been the people on the other side of the comments. And you said, if you're investing heavily, those comments just pour in. So what is the risk to a brand if they're not mentioning all these comments, if they're not going through them?
So if you're not editing the toxic comments, you're basically leaving them out there. And the position is changing because the public kind of knows that you could do something about it. Tools like Arwen are reasonably becoming more prevalent in the marketplace. So end users, people that consume social media, are going, well, there are solutions to this problem. You can do something about it. You don't need to have toxic and spam and unwanted content and commentary sitting on your channels. And very quickly, partners of brands are realizing this. So they're demanding, if I'm going to sponsor you, or I'm going to sponsor your brand or your site, or have my consumer goods posted on your site, I don't want to be associated with this stuff. I want to be in a place where there's positivity, there's a positive, thriving community. That's the kind of real firm point. The other point is there's an ethical, moral obligation to, you people wouldn't put up with this in the real world if we were sat around as kind of humans sitting in a room. You'd call it out. So why don't people want to call it out online? And then the last point is it damages your engagement. The stats are, the research shows something like 47% of people will disengage with your brand if you leave toxic and kind of threatening and violent language up there. And it's disproportionately to women. So brands that really want to engage with women don't like threatening language, violent language. They will leave your brand if you leave those sorts of comments up there.
100%.
Absolutely. In fact, yeah, Deb's watching in the comments, our community manager. She points out, partners, check out your community and social comments. You never know who is looking. So as the brand who's getting this kind of engagement on your social media posts, if you're not filtering those out and staying on top of those, you might be missing out on actual business that you had no idea was there in the comments and paying attention. But for a brand that maybe is not used to this, maybe they haven't been investing a lot in paid and now they're going to, and they're going to start to accrue this kind of commentary, or maybe they're suddenly finding themselves in an industry like AI that's suddenly booming and it wasn't necessarily a few years ago, and they're getting a lot of comments and engagement. When it comes to processes and policies, Matt, how do you recommend brands like that have never dealt with this? How do you recommend they get started?
So our approach, I mean, we went on a massive learning curve here. We had a Premier League soccer club in the UK was our first client, and we went live with auto moderation of their comment feeds without any announcement. We didn't do any PR around it. We didn't put a policy in place, and it didn't go well because the fans were like, "Well, what's going on? Why you've never hidden me before? Why are you hiding me now?" So we quickly learned that you need to be absolutely open about this. You need to be very clear. There are different jurisdictions to consider as well. So I'm talking to you from the UK. We're just implementing the online safety bill here in the UK. The EU has just implemented the DSA. There are a few states in the US that are putting in their own legislation. So there's no federal legislation as yet on it, but it's being talked about in the US as not being far off. It may see what happens in November on that regard, but we very much advocate a open expression of what you're doing, because 99% of your audience and your community wants the protection. And what the transparency and the policy does is it allows you to take action on things within the guidelines of that policy without anyone being able to say, you're censoring, you're stopping my freedom of speech. No, we're not. We've made some clear guidelines. These are the things we accept on our commentary. These are the things we don't accept. And if you do these things, we reserve the right to hide the comments. And if you carry on doing it, we reserve the right to block you from our community and not be there anymore. So we really say you need to tell people what you're doing. Never do it in secret. People will find out and they'll call you out.
Full transparency. We talk about that all the time here and how important it is. You can't hide those. And I'm glad that you brought that up as a point. So let's talk about technology. How does Aaron help with the comments?
So we have a couple of products. Well, our flagship product that we've been a startup going about 4 years now is an auto moderation tool. And we would basically connect us to your socials, very much like you would do other marketing technology tools, authorize us to collect your comments. We analyze them against up to 30 AI models that we have running in the background. We normally work with the brand or the individual to create the brand voice in the AI. So we remove comments that you 100% don't like, which we call severe, and any safe comments we let through. And then we have this kind of the nod to the machine, because the machine is never perfect. And any AI company that tells you otherwise is not being totally honest. So we have what we call the suspect queue, which is if you can go in here, and this is normally somewhere between 1% and 2% of the comments on there, and just kind of check, has the machine missed some things that I would have liked blocked, and can we teach the AI to make better decisions next time? And we kind of put that in the feedback loop on behalf of clients. So that's kind of our main moderation tool that typically kind of just runs in the background and hopefully seamlessly fixes the problem. And typically we will deal with world events as they happen. We'll create different type of comments and commentary that we haven't seen before, such as the kind of Israel-Gaza conflict, and people want to take different positions on those types of things. And that we'll need to teach the AI how people want to handle those types of things. So it's kind of an ongoing job to keep on top of it.
So I think we mentioned your tool covers both paid and organic. Confirm that that's true for me. And then also, what platforms specifically do you handle?
Yeah, that's a good question, which I failed to mention. So we cover Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, and TikTok. We cover on the organic side, and then for the ads, we cover Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We cover kind of all the different nuances. There's a bit of a nuance around UGC type content where a brand is paying to boost an influencer's post. So you need the permission of the influencer to kind of protect them. We cover a global dating app, and they do a lot of campaigns, as you can probably suspect, LGBTQ community, where they were getting homophobic abuse on the influencers' ads. and we were cleaning them, and we have to get the permission of them to kind of moderate comments on their ads. So yeah, that's basically across all those social media channels.
Terrific, terrific. If you're just tuning in, we're talking with Matthew McGrory about the importance of staying on top of social media comments and engagement. We've got a few more questions for him that you're not going to want to miss. But before we get to those, here's a quick story from Social Creek Media.
I love social media. I love what we do. I love, one of my sayings is that I feel like we're changing the world one post at a time. And the positivity, it's just, who I am. Currently, we are growing leaps and bounds. We just in the last couple of years have expanded our office. We're getting ready to expand again. We manage over 150 accounts just on Agora Pulse. So it has to be user-friendly for me and everyone that works with it, and it has to be something that I know that I can rely on, that I can trust. Like I said, and the biggest feature that we have is just the dashboard, that it is so easy to use and that anybody can use it. And actually, one of the reasons why I switched from the company that I had used before was that the lack thereof of customer service. It's definitely been, if not the best, one of the best companies to deal with as far as customer service.
So Matt, you mentioned how you were using AI earlier to help kind of screen comments and the engagement that's coming in. Can you unpack a little bit more about, specifically how is AI really, really powering Arwen to surface these kind of comments? And if there's anything else you can share about how our AI is being implemented there.
Yeah, so there's probably two things. So one, what we found is there's a big problem with spam on social media that I think everyone that uses or posts or deals with social media knows about, and it goes in waves on different channels. We found there wasn't any AI that particularly addressed that problem, so we had to build our own. Most of the models we get around things like racism, or homophobia, sexism, or misogyny are all very well researched kind of types of abuse. And so there are lots of models, open source models and proprietary models that we can kind of buy in or ingest into our platform. Spam was different. It doesn't exist. We were doing what we call a kind of word-based and sentence structure-based detection of spam, which got us to about 95% accuracy. We've recently implemented analysis of profiles across Meta. So this is where we're ingesting the picture, we're ingesting, maybe there's a link, on kind of porn bots, you get a dating link that tries to get your audience to go off to another site. The picture might be of a certain type, typically on porn bots. Someone might be in a bikini. So there are very often tell factors as to whether this might be a crypto scam type spam or a porn bot type scam. And so we're using a collection of all those different instruments to pull that together. So that's sort of on the negative side and cleaning stuff up. The other thing we're doing is trying to get AI to talk more in the brand voice of our clients. So we're using a relatively new technique. It emerged out of the Facebook's labs called retrieval augmented generation, or RAG. This is where you use this technique in tandem with large language models to create, if those people that have used large language models, they come with a expiry date of all the data that has been put into those models. And typically the responses you get will be generic. And what we try and do with RAG is couple the large language model with your data and kind of your frequently asked questions, or it might be your policies, or it might be, one thing we did was around what's your data retrieval policy, which differs from company to company, so can't be generic. So we'd use that so that the large language models are giving bespoke questions that sound like the brand and they're on brand, and then they're in the colloquialisms that the brand would want to be done. So there are a couple of things we're doing, and we're doing that to generate auto response type stuff. We're doing that on, kind of review recommendation responses on app stores, on review sites and things like that, to kind of fast track responses for brands in those environments.
I think this is so important in what you're talking about. And I think it's great. And as an agency owner, I think it's, how can we benefit from this? Because I know how time consuming this can be, but I'd love for you to share, like, how can we use it and benefit from Arwen?
Yeah. So typically with agencies, with a performance agency or someone that's a full service marketing agency, we would typically see them managing some of the ad spend. And I talked about, I can't mention their name. Hopefully I will be able to shortly in a few weeks. But dealing with a US-based global dating agency, and we found a 19% reduction in their customer acquisition costs by removing toxic commentary off their ads and keeping them clean. So in their case, they were spending like 7-figure sums. So this represented an enormous saving for them. So for me, it's like, how can we help the agency do what they do best, which is kind of recommend the best way and to deliver the best kind of ad campaign possible for the client. The other thing is, how do we create engagement? So by responding to comments, some of the stats, some of the performances we've done, you can get a 0.9 point boost on the App Store, Google Play, for your app if you just respond. So we did an AI analysis of people will post 1-star reviews, but they'll generally be a positive review. So we kind of pull that out, we give that to the client, we say, here's a response, this is how we respond to it, and they can go and respond that, and we can kind of auto respond that. So kind of that value there is kind of advising the client on, like, these are things you have to do. You were just talking about the 7% engagement and response to comments. It's not social media if you're doing that. It's just media. It's just like having a website and you're just putting content up and hoping the right thing happens. This is a place where you can control the conversation. You can direct it. You can direct it to the things that you want to be said, like you used to be able to do on a website. But this now is a two-way conversation, and too many brands are having one-way conversations. And we hope that the next journey is we're gonna take social media from being a cost base, this thing I have to have in the corner, like compliance, but we'll turn it into the revenue generating opportunity that I think most people that work in the sector believe it is.
You're so right. There's this definite incorrect perception of how brands could and should be using social media. They're not using it for engagement. They're not using it to be social. And I love that you talked about turning social media from a cost center into a profit center. That's something we talk about a lot at Agorapulse, because we focus on being able to share links in these kinds of comments and the posts and the direct messages that are all tracked. And so when someone's sharing a link to something to be purchased on someone else's shop, they can track that actual purchase and attribute it to that particular social post. But one thing that you just kind of glossed over that I'd love you to kind of unpack a little bit more is the fact that you do have tools built in to help with the actual responses. So talk to us about that aspect a little bit more. And then, other than dealing with just the negative comments and the spam, are there other use cases for Arwen that brands and agencies should be aware of?
Yeah, so I've touched on the sort of tech around it, but we have a tool called Engage, which is kind of exactly as it does. We will surface the happy comments from your community. So we did a project for a UK pub chain, bar chain. They have 2,400 bars, so loads and loads of Instagram and Facebook accounts, about 4,000, and they wanted to get an overall picture, bit of social listening thing of what's going on, but they also want to respond to them. Who's asking me questions? Who wants to kind of know things about my service, about my food, and where do I go? And when you've got that many accounts and a very disparate kind of organization structure that's potentially centralized in how they respond to this stuff. So bringing that all into one central place, and then helping them find the needles in the haystack. What are the positive things? We can use an emotion AI to detect questions, joyful content. So who's being happy about my food, that I might want to give a voucher to? Who's disgusted by my food, and I might have a customer service problem, and I kind of want to dive into that. So we integrate into lots of third-party tools that have open AIs, open APIs, similar to how Agorapulse works, and to try and find those needles in the haystacks and put them in whatever tool our clients are using as that, which could be a myriad of different third-party tools. So that's our kind of engagement product. And then I've mentioned about what we call our customized product, which is really using that kind of RAG technique to create the AI model that kind of detects the needle in the haystack that's important for that brand. So we spoke to a global brand that was concerned about plastic from their product being put in the sea, and people talking about that, and they don't know about all the good work that they are doing as an organization to remove plastic from the sea and save dolphins and save the whales, etc. So they kind of want to put that message out there.
That's awesome. So what, with all of the new changes you're doing, so what's on the roadmap for this next year?
Well, I think the main thing is in our world, is probably mapping out our personal scope. We've seen a lot of people in the gaming sector. We don't cover things like Twitch. We don't cover Reddit. So there's some kind of platform growth that we're specifically going to be doing. We're also reaching out into the Engage product onto new places. We've just done the Google Play Store. We're doing the App Store kind of reviews. We've got an engagement with a broadcaster to help them with Trustpilot responses and kind of think Google reviews, things like that. That's where we're sort of headed on that roadmap of. In that way, it's normally a one conversation. So someone posts a review and you want a response. So it's a little bit more simple than the kind of 3 or 4 responses you might need to have a social media conversation, and kind of developing our kind of owned analysis of owned channels and making sure people can find those needles in haystack in more and more use cases, because we're probably 5 or 6 projects in. We're finding quite a lot of demand from our existing clients to kind of put this in place. We work with a lot of Formula One teams and kind of helping them on race weekends, for example, understand what people are saying every 15 minutes during a Formula One race, like they had last weekend in Miami. So that's kind of what we're doing with Red Bull and Mercedes and those types of teams. So kind of very quick, reactive. What are people saying? What's the emotion? What's the sentiment being said? And how should I respond to that? Because sometimes you need that information, in their case, to give to drivers to make a comment in a press conference that influences online behavior. So it's kind of how do we join the offline with the online and make them kind of influence each other and join up in a positive way for the brand.
That's amazing. I'm glad you mentioned Twitch and gaming, because I was just talking to an agency owner this morning about how huge that industry is. They were talking about Toyota sponsoring, gaming feeds, which was totally new to me. I'm not really a gamer. I'm not really watching Twitch feeds. I had no idea this was such a big business. That makes a lot of sense to have a tool like yours monitoring the constant flood of comments on a platform like that. Matt, you've been amazing. This has been such a deep dive into this topic that I know a lot of people need to know more about. If they want to learn more from you or from Arwen, where can they go to connect and find you?
They can find us on our website, www.arwen.ai, ARWEN. You can email me. I'm Matthew, so MATTHEW @arwen.ai. And I'd love to answer any questions anyone's got.
Fantastic. That's all we've got for today, friends. Any final thoughts, Robin?
This has been great. I appreciate this and knowing what you're doing for the industry and changing it. I love the F1 example. So I think that's perfect for people who are staying on top of this. Thank you so much for joining us, Matthew.
Lovely. It was a pleasure. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Robin.
Thanks so much, everybody. Till next time. Thank you for listening to another episode of the MarTech Show, hosted by Robin Dimond and Mike Allton, powered by Agorapulse, the #1 rated social media management solution, which you can learn more about at agorapulse.com. If you want to make sure you're part of our audience during live weekly broadcasts, take a look at our calendar at agorapulse.com/calendar, or click the subscribe button in your email once you register for any of these events. Is there a particular tool or topic you'd like to see us talk about? Or perhaps you think your solution should be featured? Email me at mike@agorapulse.com.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Christy Heiler hosts a fantastic podcast called Own It. Christy, tell us more about the show.
Own It is all about celebrating women and non-binary advertising agency owners. We talk about buying out of the boys' club of advertising because less than 1% of ad agencies are owned by women.
And where can people subscribe?
You can find the podcast at untilyouownit.com. We're also on the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcast.net. And of course, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.